not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Betancourt.
And my name is Magdalena Lopeza, and this is CUNY News.
What is SB 1070? Do you know? It was a law in Arizona that was supposed to be enacted on July 29, 2010, that made it a crime to be an immigrant. The law started out in the United States Court of Appeals, ending up with a 4-4 tie decision on whether all four aspects of the law should be struck down. It then moved its way up to the Supreme Court to determine its constitutionality. Once there, in an 8-0 decision, the Supreme Court struck down 3 out of the 4 provisions of the law, keeping only Section 2B standing, the Show Me Your Papers clause. As the Supreme Court justices sat down, they thought about SB 1070 and whether or not it would be held as constitutional. The Supreme Court upheld the first section, Section 2B, which stated 2 circumstances in which a police officer can stop and ask for a person's immigration papers. The first being if a police officer has reasonable suspicion of a person being an illegal immigrant, they can detain the person and ask them to show their immigration papers. Reasonable suspicion is the same logic police officers used in the stop and frisk policy in New York City. New Yorkers felt prosecuted by this policy, so imagine how immigrants feel in Arizona. The other circumstance is that if a person is arrested for illegal activity, the police officers can ask for the immigration papers. The Supreme Court upheld this because originally Arizona had the description of asking people of this immigration status. This section just made it mandatory for police officers to do so. Section 3 of SB 1070 made it possible to get arrested in Arizona by walking around without valid immigration papers. The section was struck down because it conflicted with federal alien registration requirements set up by Congress, which states that if an alien is in fact walking around without valid immigration papers, they will be fined and it will only be a misdemeanor. Congress made it so the area of alien registration left no room for states to butt in, yet here was Arizona trying to butt in. Section 5C makes it a crime for an undocumented immigrant to apply or have a job. It was immediately struck down because it conflicted with the federal law that does not criminalize undocumented immigrants looking for work. Arizona tried to argue that this section did not interfere with federal law because, unlike the federal law, it did not deal with employers. Finding the argument flawed, the Supreme Court struck it down. Section 6 of SB 1070 made it completely okay to arrest people without a warrant, as long as a police officer had probable cause to believe that a person had committed an offense that would make it possible for them to be removed from the United States. Just like Section 3, it was struck down because Arizona once again conflicted with the federal entity known as the removal system, which outlines the steps in which a person can be deported. If these kinds of arrests were allowed, they would conflict with the procedures outlined. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, how does this affect anyone? Well, first, it affects police officers. Whether or not you might agree the passing of Section 2B opened the floodgates to chances of racially profiling and frivolous lawsuits. If anyone believes the police officers are being too lenient or too strict with the law, they can be sued. Secondly, immigrants, whether they may be legal or illegal, now feel prosecuted by the law. Think about it like this. In Nazi Germany, Jewish people were repeatedly stopped and asked to show their papers to Nazi soldiers. Here's the difference. This is happening in the United States of America, in the land of the free, right? Lastly, this law has caused many other states such as Alabama, Georgia, Indiana, South Carolina, and Utah to come up with laws like Arizona. So after watching this announcement, what are your opinions?